On June 19th, 2019, the morning light over Maroon Lake Trailhead, Aspen, Colorado, was clear enough to flatten shadows. Surveillance from the visitor center shows Nora Klein, 31, signing her name in the trail register at 11:46 a.m., looping her K carefully as though finishing a mundane errand. A store receipt timestamped 11:51 shows 2 protein bars, 1 bottled tea, and sunscreen. No gear changes, no hint of distress. Witness interviews later confirmed she paused beside the orientation map, checking her Garmin eTrex GPS and adjusting the strap of her pack. The camera holds her there for just 4 seconds, framed by late spring stillness, unaware of the decades of disappearances logged in the same wilderness. At 12:12 p.m., she turned north toward Buckskin Pass, vanishing into frame. According to later case documentation, that register entry would become evidence item K12, not a routine signature. Highway camera footage captured Nora's Subaru Outback crossing Independence Pass at 9:41 a.m. on June 19th, 2019. Temperature measured 52 degrees Fahrenheit. Weather stable. The vehicle moved steadily through the winding mountain road, one of dozens that morning headed toward Aspen's summer trailheads. Ranger Lewis Danner's interview, conducted 6 days later, documented the brief exchange. She asked about snow pockets past Crater Lake, normal day hiker stuff. I remember telling her the upper section had thawed earlier that week. Nothing unusual in her questions or demeanor. The visitor center's archival sign-out log confirmed Nora's entry, made with blue ballpoint pen, her emergency contact listed as Sarah Klein, sister. The cell phone number provided matched records from her service provider. Next to expected return, she had written 7 p.m. same day. 4 hikers exiting the same trail system that afternoon would later describe passing a woman matching Nora's description between 1:15 and 2:30 p.m. All reported ordinary brief trail greetings. Meteorological data from the National Weather Service station at Aspen Mountain recorded clear conditions, 13-mile visibility, and temperatures rising to 68 degrees by mid-afternoon. What transforms routine documentation into forensic evidence is rarely the content, but the context that follows. When Nora's planned 7-hour hike extended into darkness, the sign-out sheet transitioned from administrative record to investigative timeline. Later, when search teams recovered partial GPS data from her device, they discovered something peculiar. The same coordinates from Buckskin Pass had been logged twice, once with her user ID, once without. Maroon Lake Trail is considered moderate difficulty by U.S. Forest Service standards, with well-marked junctions and consistent maintenance throughout the summer season. On the morning of June 19th, trail conditions were optimal. Patches of wildflowers emerging along the lower sections, minimal mud from recent melt. Forest Service Patrol Officer Denise Hadley's body camera footage, timestamped 1:24 p.m., captured 8 separate hiking groups descending from the Crater Lake Loop. The third group, a family of 4 from Texas, mentioned to Officer Hadley, "We passed a woman in a white cap and blue pack heading up toward the pass. She seemed to be making good time." The ambient recording captured the sensory landscape, snowmelt cascading over granite surfaces, the distant call of Clark's nutcrackers, mosquitoes audible near still water. Several hikers commented on clear visibility extending to the Maroon Bells themselves, iconic twin peaks that dominate the valley's western edge. Equipment recovery teams, working 6 days later under search protocols, located partial footprint impressions matching the distinctive lug pattern of Salomon X Ultra women's hiking boots, size 8, The impressions tracked consistently along the established trail toward Buckskin Pass Junction, where increased rock cover eliminated further tracking possibilities. Maroon Snowmass Wilderness hosts approximately 70,000 visitors each summer season, according to Forest Service counts. Between 2000 and 2019, 86 hikers required search and rescue assistance in the immediate area. Of those, 6 remained permanently missing. In Colorado's White River National Forest, an average of 23 persons vanish per decade without confirmed rescue, noted Search and Rescue Coordinator Melissa Thurman in her 2017 departmental assessment. Approximately 60% are eventually located. The remainder enter a statistical category we call unresolved wilderness missing. Nora's path that day was documented only through these fragmentary intersections: a trail register passing hikers, partial footprints on softened trail sections. Each data point ordinary in isolation, unremarkable until they stopped. By dusk, when rangers conducted their standard parking lot check, they noted a lone Subaru Outback with Colorado plates still in the overnight section. The vehicle information matched the trail register's sign-out data. At 8:43 p.m., the first missing hiker report was filed. Cell tower data obtained from service provider Verizon Wireless showed Nora's phone maintaining normal signal until approximately 2:40 p.m., when the last communication ping registered near Fravert Basin Overlook, an elevated section of trail with clear line of sight to distant towers. After that time, no further signals were detected. At 6:45 p.m. on June 19th, Sarah Klein, Nora's sister, attempted 3 calls to her cell phone. According to her statement, the first went straight to voicemail. The second rang once, then disconnected. The third never connected at all. By 8:30 p.m., with darkness settling over the mountains and no contact from her sister, Sarah called the Pitkin County Sheriff's Department, initiating the first incident report. By 5 a.m. on June 20th, search and rescue teams had mobilized at Maroon Lake Trailhead. Morning fog hung in patches across the valley, reducing early visibility to less than 100 yards. The ambient temperature registered 43 degrees Fahrenheit. Search coordinator James Terrell established grid sections extending 8 square miles from Nora's last known position. His field notes from the initial briefing read, "Standard protocol, Charlie 3 initiated. Priority sectors outlined as quadrants 4 through 7 covering primary trail and first-level deviations. Helicopter support requested for 0800 hours if weather permits. Helicopter call sign, Air 61, Sierra lifted off at 5:48 a.m. once fog conditions permitted flight visibility. The mechanical rhythm of rotor blades punctuated the otherwise silent morning. The downwash, momentarily flattening alpine grass in concentric circles below. Ground teams reported radio interference in steeper sections, a common issue where mountain topography blocks line-of-sight communication. Signal lost at grid reference 247, noted field technician Caroline Weathers in Incident Report 1. No visual contact with subject or materials. Continuing sweep pattern alpha through high probability zones. The technology marking Nora's presence, her cell phone, GPS device, emergency whistle, had gone silent within this wilderness expanse. What remained was the diminishing probability curve that guides all wilderness searches. 90% of missing hikers are located within 48 hours. Those remaining face rapidly declining survival statistics with each passing day. On June 22nd, 53 hours into the search operation, the incident took an unexpected turn. A single GPS ping registered from Nora's device, not from the search area, but from a location 36 miles west. In a remote drainage outside the primary search zone, the coordinates placed the signal in an area with no established trails, accessible only through dense forest and steep terrain. Between 1990 and 2020, 74 hikers disappeared within a 70-mile radius of Aspen, Colorado, stated the National Missing Persons Database annual report. Of those, 23% were never confirmed deceased, creating a statistical anomaly compared to other wilderness regions. The documented patterns created clusters along major trail systems, particularly those crossing the Continental Divide or intersecting with older, abandoned mining routes. Many disappearances shared common elements: solo hikers, clear weather conditions, moderate to advanced experience levels, and planned returns within 24 hours. Dr. Helen Morris, forensic analyst specializing in wilderness disappearances, reviewed the growing case file on June 23rd. Her assessment, recorded in the consultation log, noted, "When disappearances repeat along major faults or trail crossings, we look for non-random clustering. The Maroon Bells Snowmass Wilderness shows 3 distinct hot zones where missing persons reports exceed statistical probability." The fluorescent lights of the Incident Command Center hummed continuously as teams processed incoming data. The mechanical snap of staplers securing new reports punctuated radio chatter. Wall maps, covered in colored pins marking search sectors, grew more complex with each operational period. Nora's case file now expanded to include historical context. 3 previous disappearances had occurred within 5 miles of her last known position. A 28-year-old male hiker in 2004 never recovered. A couple in their 40s in 2011, partial remains located 2 years later. And a 34-year-old female photographer in 2016, recovered alive after 9 days, suffering from exposure and disorientation. The psychological aspect of wilderness disappearances often gets overlooked, Dr. Morris continued. We focus on terrain, weather, wildlife, but human factors can create blind spots in both the victim's decision-making and our search methodologies. Standard search protocols expanded into specialized grid patterns. Infrared drones scanned terrain inaccessible to ground teams. Cadaver dogs worked selected sectors based on wind patterns and topography. Yet the fundamental challenge remained: one human signature against 70,000 acres of wilderness. On the morning of June 25th, the search's 6th day, a dog handler reported an unexpected discovery: a single boot print matching Nora's shoe size and tread pattern, pressed into mud approximately 2 miles from the main trail. The impression appeared remarkably fresh, too fresh for day 6 of exposure to elements. Rainfall data for the area indicated no precipitation that would have reset the soil since her disappearance. The print faced south, opposite her expected direction of travel. Pitkin County Sheriff's Department established an expanded command post near the Maroon Bells Scenic Loop on June 21st. By June 25th, 92 personnel had rotated through the operation, covering increasingly remote sections of the 5-square-mile search zone. Weather conditions deteriorated as an unexpected summer storm system moved through the area, reducing visibility to under 50 meters at higher elevations. Search Division. Chief Thomas Reynolds coordinated teams across multiple agencies, his voice crackling through radio transmissions. Team Delta returning due to low visibility. Over. Team Echo reports negative contact in Sector 6. Over. Air operations suspended until weather front passes. Over. The command tent hummed with generator power, the canvas walls occasionally snapping in gusting wind. Maps covered folding tables marked with colored pins tracking completed search grids. The scent of rain-soaked earth mingled with coffee and wet gear as teams rotated in and out of the field. Nora's mother, Eleanor Klein, arrived on June 22nd and maintained a constant presence near the operations center. Search team leader Marissa Chen recalled, "She would stand just outside the command tent watching teams return. Her expression wasn't panic yet. It still carried the rationalization that this was a temporary delay, that her daughter had simply found shelter somewhere and would be located soon." Family members often become unofficial components of search operations, their presence both motivational and complicating for professional teams. Eleanor provided detailed information about Nora's hiking experience, moderate with 6 previous solo overnight trips, medical history, no conditions, no medications, and psychological baseline, described as methodical, unlikely to take unnecessary risks. By June 25th, operational tempo began shifting from rescue to recovery. Standard protocols acknowledge a survival probability curve that diminishes sharply after 72 hours in wilderness conditions. Yet teams maintained full-scale search efforts, pushing against statistical probability. Hope sustains operational tempo beyond what probability suggests, noted search psychologist Dr. Julian Barnes in his field assessment. We see this pattern repeatedly. Teams continue maximum effort even as statistical outcomes indicate diminishing returns. On June 26th, 7 days into the search operation, a breakthrough occurred. A drone camera operating in grid section 12B captured images of an object near the tree line approximately 3 miles northeast of the main trail. Enhanced footage confirmed a blue backpack, matching the description of Nora's equipment, positioned upright against a pine tree. Recovery Team Bravo 2 reached the backpack location at 14:30 hours on June 26th. Field photographer Tanya Morris documented the scene. A navy blue Osprey Women's Day pack, approximately 35-liter capacity, positioned upright against the base of a mature Engelmann spruce. The pack appeared undamaged, with no signs of animal disturbance or weather deterioration. The positioning was immediately unusual, noted team leader Carlos Menendez in his field report. It appeared deliberately placed rather than dropped or abandoned during emergency movement. Contents were cataloged as Evidence Box A5, 1 tube of sunscreen, SPF 50 receipt matched to Nora's purchase, 1 protein bar with a single bite removed, a torn map page showing the Maroon Bells Snowmass Wilderness area with pen markings along the Buckskin Pass route, a folded trail permit, a half-empty water bladder, and a light fleece jacket. The evidence processing tent filled with the rustle of gloved hands manipulating plastic evidence bags. The metallic clicks of camera shutters documented each item before storage. Overhead lights cast harsh shadows across the examination table as technicians measured, weighed, and cataloged the recovered materials. Forensic analyst Rita Holden observed, "The condition of the pack indicates it wasn't abandoned in haste or panic. The contents were organized with heavier items at the bottom. The protein bar with just 1 bite suggests an interrupted meal, not consumption over time." Most notably, team members documented minimal leaf litter or pine needles underneath the pack. If it had been there since June 19th, we would expect to see accumulation of forest debris, explained Menendez. The relatively clean ground surface suggests recent placement, possibly within the previous 24 to 48 hours. No blood evidence, torn fabric, or other indicators of struggle were detected within a 20-meter radius of the recovery site. Cadaver dogs brought to the location registered no alerts. GPS coordinates were recorded as N39 degrees, 4 minutes, 56 seconds, W 106 degrees 54 minutes, 21 seconds, approximately 2.3 miles from Nora's last confirmed location on the main trail. The pack shows no signs of having been dragged or carried by wildlife, noted wildlife biologist Dr. Samuel Kemp, consulting on the investigation. In cases where predators interact with human belongings, we typically see tearing, scent marking, or scattered contents. This pack appears to have been deliberately set in place. The recovery raised more questions than answers. If Nora had continued hiking after leaving her pack behind, where was she going? If the pack had been moved after her disappearance, by whom? The careful placement suggested human intervention rather than environmental factors. Most concerning was the discovery team's final observation: partial footprint impressions approaching the tree from the west, not matching Nora's boot pattern, but appearing to be barefoot human prints. From June 27th onward, search operations expanded beyond conventional protocols. Search and Rescue Captain Ellen Monroe implemented an expanding box search, extending the coverage area to 12 square miles. Teams now operated in extended shifts, with diminishing returns and increasing physical toll. Mountains start responding differently when you've walked them 5 days searching for the same name, Captain Monroe reflected in her command log. The terrain becomes both familiar and disorienting. Teams begin seeing patterns that might not exist. We call it search fatigue, a psychological state where hope and exhaustion create perceptual distortions. By June 29th, 12 personnel had been treated for dehydration, minor injuries, and exhaustion. The rhythm of the operation became mechanical, teams departing at dawn, grid patterns traced across topographic maps, radio check-ins every 30 minutes, the metallic taste of energy bars consumed in brief rest periods. Rain fell intermittently across the search area, complicating tracking efforts. The scent of wet pine and decomposing vegetation permeated the forest. Diesel generators hummed continuously at base camp, powering communication equipment and charging stations. Helicopters made daily sweeps when weather permitted, their rotors creating temporary clearings in the morning fog. Wildlife biologists noted increased bear activity in the northern sectors, requiring additional safety protocols for ground teams. Local volunteers provided food support for operations, the command center filling with the aroma of donated meals each evening as teams returned. Sarah Klein maintained a daily presence at the command post, reviewing maps and occasionally joining briefings. Her statement to investigators revealed increasing concern about her sister's wilderness experience. Nora was methodical, not impulsive. She researched every trail before hiking it. Whatever happened wasn't the result of poor preparation or reckless decisions. Search operations now incorporated specialized teams, technical climbers examining cliff faces and drainages, swift water technicians checking river sections, and cave specialists investigating known karst formations in the limestone areas. The operation had expanded beyond standard protocols into what incident commanders termed exhaustive parameter search, the most resource-intensive response available. On July 1st, 12 days into the search, a motion trigger camera placed near a game trail approximately 1 mile from where the backpack was found captured an unexpected image. At 2:17 a.m., the infrared sensor recorded what appeared to be fabric movement, a human-shaped form kneeling beside a fallen log. The image quality, compromised by darkness and distance, prevented positive identification. When teams reached the location at first light, no physical evidence remained. The environment itself seemed to be turning inward, revealing less with each expanded search. Teams began tracing their own movements, crossing and recrossing terrain that held no answers. By early July, national media had converged on the Aspen area. News anchors stood at Maroon Lake Trailhead, framed by the iconic Twin Peaks, delivering somber updates. Woman missing. 12 days amid storm-closed trails. The clinical search operation acquired a public dimension, transforming Nora from missing person to media narrative. Eleanor and Sarah Klein appeared at a press conference on the Pitkin County Courthouse steps on July 2nd. Eleanor's prepared statement, delivered in a steady voice that occasionally faltered. Our daughter and sister is still out there. We ask anyone who hiked the Maroon Bells area in late June to review their photos and memories. The smallest detail might help bring Nora home. Local reporter Ellen Franks conducted interviews with rangers and search personnel. Her evening broadcast captured the visible fatigue in their faces, the plain diction of professionals reaching the limits of procedure. We continue to investigate all possible scenarios, stated Incident Commander Reynolds, his voice hoarse from days of radio communication. Search operations remain active on multiple fronts. The clinical vocabulary of search and rescue acquired new gravity as days passed. Probability zones became recovery sectors, responsive search shifted to evidentiary investigation. The language reflected the unspoken reality that National SAR protocol defines 72-hour mark as peak viable rescue window. Nora's file had crossed 5 times that threshold. Wilderness psychologist Dr. Julian Barnes, consulting on the operation, noted the emotional impact on search teams. There's a specific kind of grief that emerges in prolonged wilderness searches. Teams begin to feel personal connection to someone they've never met, reconstructing a life through GPS coordinates and recovered possessions. The Aspen community responded with volunteer support, local outfitters providing additional equipment, restaurants delivering meals to search base, and experienced backcountry guides offering specialized knowledge of remote areas. Information tables appeared in town, distributing missing person flyers and collecting potential witness statements. Media coverage created both benefits and complications. Increased public awareness brought forward additional witnesses, but also generated speculation that sometimes diverted investigative resources. Social media groups formed around the case, some offering support to the family, others proposing theories ranging from plausible to fantastical. On July 2nd, 3 hikers returning from an overnight camping trip reported an unusual experience near Willow Pass, approximately 4 miles from Nora's last known position. According to their joint statement, around dusk, we heard what sounded like a woman's voice saying, "Stop." It was clear enough that all 3 of us heard it, but when we called out and searched the area, we couldn't locate anyone. The voice didn't repeat, and we found no signs of another camper. Search teams immediately redirected to the reported area, but found no evidence of recent human presence. Audio specialists later analyzed the hikers' recorded statement, noting that environmental sounds, wind through rock formations, certain bird calls, or water movement, can sometimes create audio patterns that the human brain interprets as speech. As July advanced, broadcast information increasingly substituted for Nora's physical presence. Footage replaced witness. Her image on missing person flyers became more familiar to the public than the actual person had ever been. Each search becomes a cartography of hope compressed into diminishing coordinates. The Nora Klein case file transitioned to long-term missing person status in August 2019, joining the small percentage of wilderness disappearances that remain unresolved despite exhaustive efforts. On September 9th, 2023, 4 years after Nora's disappearance, routine maintenance operations created an unexpected breakthrough. Forest Service crew supervisor Martin Chambers led a 3-person team surveying avalanche damage near Crystal River drainage, approximately 34 miles west of Maroon Lake Trailhead. Their assignment focused on cataloging trail damage for summer repair planning. We were marking deadfall for clearing when Rodriguez noticed something unusual through the trees, Chambers stated in his incident report. At first, we thought it was an old mining structure. There are dozens scattered throughout these mountains, but the construction looked newer, using materials that didn't match historic mining architecture. The structure, obscured by dense brush and partially covered by avalanche debris, was a small log hut, approximately 12 feet by 14 feet. Field technician Alicia Rodriguez activated her body camera as the team approached, capturing footage that would later become central to the investigation. Pale wood shims between log sections, an improvised chimney constructed from metal ducting, and strange symbols carved into the wood near the doorway. The team's radio transmission at 15:23 hours requested law enforcement support. Notify Pitkin County Sheriff's Office, possible unauthorized structure, grid coordinates Hotel 79er, immediate containment requested. Deputies arrived 90 minutes later, securing the scene. Their initial entry revealed signs of recent habitation. 2 sleeping bags arranged on elevated wooden platforms, a flattened battery-powered lantern, and several glass jars containing preserved foods, labeled with dates from 2021. A small wood stove occupied one corner with approximately half a cord of split firewood stacked nearby. The scent of pine resin permeated the structure, mixed with wood smoke residue and the musty odor of unwashed fabrics. Afternoon light filtered through a single small window, dust particles visible in the narrow beam. Outside, the sound of the Crystal River provided constant white noise, explaining why previous aerial searches might have missed human sounds from the location. Deputy Sarah Mendez's body camera documented the most significant discovery. Upon checking the rear sleeping platform, we located one living subject. Female, initially unresponsive to verbal commands. Subject appeared conscious but non-communicative, maintaining eye contact but not speaking. The woman, severely malnourished and showing signs of exposure, responded to physical assistance but remained silent. Most disturbing to responding officers was her affect. While clearly in physical distress, she maintained a continuous, slight smile, described in medical notes as inappropriate to circumstances. Discovery often begins not as breakthrough, but as infrastructure maintenance, routine work that accidentally intersects with hidden realities. What Forest Service crew members expected to be a typical day of avalanche assessment had instead uncovered a case that had gone cold 4 years earlier. The female subject was transported to Aspen Valley Hospital, arriving at 21:40 hours on September 9th. Emergency physician Dr. Rachel Winters documented the initial assessment. Patient presents with severe malnutrition, estimated 25% below standard, weight for height, multiple healed lacerations on extremities, nonverbal but responds to simple commands with head movements, maintains unusual affect, social smiling without apparent emotional connection. Hospital intake protocols activated the unidentified person procedure. Staff collected fingerprints, photographs, and DNA samples for database comparison. The steady rhythm of medical equipment provided background to the otherwise silent treatment room. Antiseptic odors mingled with the pine resin scent still clinging to the patient's recovered coat. Fluorescent lighting cast harsh shadows across the treatment area, highlighting the woman's gaunt features. Within hours, preliminary identification suggested a possible match to Nora Klein's missing person file. By September 10th, DNA verification from dental records and familial samples confirmed her identity 4 years and 3 months after her disappearance. Medical Director Dr. James Hargrove noted in the case file, patient exhibits significant physical compromise consistent with long-term nutritional deficiency and environmental exposure. More concerning are the psychological presentations, dissociative episodes, nonverbal affirmative responses only, and persistent inappropriate affect. Eleanor and Sarah Klein arrived at the hospital on September 11th. Their controlled hope transformed to complicated grief upon seeing Nora's condition. Sarah later described the encounter. She looked at us, and I know she recognized us. There was a flicker there, but she couldn't or wouldn't speak. She just kept smiling, that strange smile that never reached her eyes. Neurological assessment revealed no physical brain injury that would explain the communication difficulties. PET scans showed unusual activity patterns in the amygdala and hippocampus, areas associated with emotional processing and memory formation. Psychiatric consultation suggested severe trauma response with dissociative features. Recovery does not equate to return, noted Dr. Eliza Montford, the psychiatrist assigned to Nora's case. In cases of prolonged captivity or isolation, the person physically rescued often remains psychologically unreachable for extended periods. The mind creates protective barriers that don't dissolve simply because physical freedom has been restored. Among the most unsettling discoveries during Nora's medical evaluation was a writing sample requested by cognitive specialists. When asked to write her name, she produced a perfect mirror image of the signature from the original trail register, each letter reversed, but formed with identical pressure and style to her pre-disappearance handwriting. Investigative teams from the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit joined local law enforcement to map and process the hut location. Its position, 34 miles from Nora's original trail coordinates, could only be reached by abandoned mining roads not marked on current recreational maps. The structure itself appeared to have been constructed within the past 5 to 7 years, using materials likely transported by off-road vehicle. Evidence technician Marcus Williams cataloged the interior contents. Multiple ration cans manufactured between 1998 and 2002, suggesting stockpiling or periodic supply runs. Hemp rope fibers consistent with restraint use. 7 notebooks containing handwritten entries in an unidentified male hand. The notebooks presented investigators with disturbing insights. Written in cramped, meticulous handwriting, they contained what appeared to be observational logs, geographic coordinates, and philosophical musings with possible cultic references. One page, dated April 2022, contained the notation, "The woman from the trail now quiet, she understands the mountain speech." Audio forensic specialists recovered a partially damaged cassette tape from beneath the wooden floor. Enhancement revealed a low male voice repeating geographic coordinates and phrases that linguistic experts identified as combining elements of survivalist ideology with pseudo-religious terminology. The location itself represents a calculated isolation strategy, noted FBI analyst Teresa Huang. It sits in a narrow drainage where satellite signals are compromised by terrain. It's positioned to catch southern sun exposure while remaining invisible from air searches due to the tree canopy. The construction incorporates natural features to minimize visual signature. Environmental sampling indicated human habitation spanning approximately 4 years, aligning with Nora's disappearance timeline. DNA evidence recovered from the structure matched both Nora Klein and an unidentified male subject. Hair samples suggested at least one additional human presence during the occupation period. Wilderness offers concealment not by distance, but by depth of silence, observed Search and Rescue Captain Monroe, who joined the evidence recovery team. This location was less than 40 miles from a major resort town, yet completely removed from detection. It's not remoteness that hides people. It's invisibility within systems we think we've fully mapped. Tracking dogs followed human scent trails from the structure along what appeared to be established routes to water sources and hunting areas. One path led to a crude observation point overlooking a Forest Service road, suggesting the occupant monitored official movements in the area. The investigation revealed a disturbing reality. While search teams had focused on finding a lost hiker, they had instead been hunting for someone deliberately concealed. The wilderness had not claimed Nora through accident or natural hazard, but through human predation, a disappearance engineered rather than occurring. Between October and December 2023, a multi-agency task force connected Nora's case to 2 additional cold cases from the same region. Investigators identified the primary suspect as Edward Harmon, 56, a former seasonal Forest Service employee with wilderness skills and extensive knowledge of the White River National Forest. Forensic evidence from the hut matched Harmon's DNA profile, already in federal databases from prior arrests for trespassing on federal land. On October 19th, federal agents located and arrested Harmon at a rural property in western Utah. The criminal complaint filed in U.S. District Court charged multiple counts of kidnapping, false imprisonment, and assault. The court transcripts from United States v. Harmon, preliminary hearing on October 22nd, revealed disturbing insights into the case. Prosecutor: did you maintain any form of restraint on Ms. Klein during her captivity? Harmon: she stayed. The mountain held her. Prosecutor: did you remove her from the Maroon Bells trail system against her will? Harmon: I showed her the path others couldn't see. The forest chooses who stays. Psychiatric evaluation found Harmon competent to stand trial despite expressing delusional beliefs about wilderness spaces and human selection. His statements during interrogation suggested he viewed himself as an agent of natural forces rather than a perpetrator. Forensic excavation of areas surrounding the hut led to the discovery of human remains on an adjacent ridge, approximately 1/4 mile from the structure. DNA testing identified 2 deceased individuals, both reported missing since 2015 during separate hiking excursions in the White River National Forest. The investigative scope expanded to include 11 additional missing persons cases spanning from 2008 to 2019, all within the operational range of Harmon's known movements. Search teams conducted new operations at 27 locations identified from Harmon's notebooks and GPS data recovered from his vehicle. The criminal record achieves closure only through layered tragedy, noted victim advocate Leslie Chen, working with families of the identified victims. For every answer that provides resolution, new questions emerge about other possible cases. The wilderness conceals both evidence and history. Court proceedings revealed that Harmon had worked as a seasonal trail maintenance worker for 3 different national forests over a 15-year period, giving him intimate knowledge of backcountry areas and patrol schedules. His employment record showed positive performance evaluations, but noted preference for solitary assignments and minimal engagement with recreational visitors. During evidence transport on December 12th, Nora Klein briefly broke her silence for the first time since recovery. As technicians carried boxes of materials past her hospital room, she whispered a single phrase to her attending nurse. "It was always daylight." The statement was logged in her medical record, but its meaning remained unclear, whether literal description, psychological metaphor, or fragmentary memory. From January to August 2024, Nora Klein remained under specialized care within a federal witness protection facility in Colorado. Her recovery progressed physically: weight normalization, improved mobility, resolution of nutritional deficiencies, but psychological healing proved more elusive. Therapist Dr. Calder Rains documented her limited engagement. Patient remains predominantly nonverbal. She responds most consistently to questions about natural environments, particularly weather patterns and cloud formations. When shown photographs of mountain landscapes, she demonstrates recognition without distress, but becomes non-responsive when presented with images of forest interiors. Courtroom proceedings continued without her direct testimony. Prosecutors relied on physical evidence, forensic analysis, and Edward Harmon's own statements to build their case. The legal process faded into background noise against the more immediate challenge of psychological recovery. Sarah Klein maintained regular visits throughout this period. Her statement to victim services reflected the complex reality of having someone return physically while remaining psychologically distant. "We wait for her to remember something other than coordinates. Sometimes I see recognition in her eyes, but it disappears before becoming words." The case prompted institutional changes across multiple agencies. The U.S. Forest Service implemented new wilderness missing person protocols, adding psychological screening components to missing person recovery teams. Trailhead registration systems incorporated digital backups and photo documentation. Search and rescue organizations adjusted grid search methodologies to include what became known as concealment probability mapping, assessment of locations specifically selected for human hiding rather than accidental wilderness loss. For those working directly with survivors of wilderness abductions, the procedural changes acknowledged a difficult truth. Trauma becomes procedural, the self cataloged alongside evidence. Recovery exists not as event but as ongoing process, measured in small moments of reconnection. Nora's final recorded act during her time in the witness care facility came during an art therapy session in August 2024. Without prompting, she used her index finger to trace the outline of a trailhead sign on blank paper, perfectly reproducing the Maroon Lake registration board, where her last normal day had begun. Her finger moved with precision, following invisible grooves only she could perceive. Late autumn 2025. The Maroon Lake trailhead signage has been replaced. Laminated warnings now read, "Notify rangers before solo travel." The original logbook containing Nora Klein's final signature sits sealed in archival box T17 at the Pitkin County Records Office. Ranger Lewis Danner occasionally checks it during night shifts, his gloved hand resting where her signature once appeared. The maintenance logs note his presence. Routine archival verification covering these unscheduled visits. Edward Harmon received multiple life sentences without possibility of parole in April 2025. His case files occupy 17 linear feet of storage in the federal records system. The hut where Nora spent 4 years has been dismantled, its location marked only in classified geographic databases. Nora herself now lives with her sister in Michigan, far from mountains. Her medical records indicate continued limited verbal communication and periodic dissociative episodes. On clear days, Sarah takes her to Lake Michigan's shore, where open horizons provide visibility without enclosure. Under bright institutional light, the ink line from Nora Klein's final name on the trail register curls upward mid-letter, ending mid-air. No pressure mark suggests completion, just an unfinished stroke, evidence of motion interrupted.